Hello, welcome to Building Caregiver Resilience, Guilt, and Grief. This presentation is aimed at people caring for someone who is living with dementia. It takes courage to learn more about this disease, and I commend you for your commitment to your growth as a caregiver. We will start with what makes caregiving hard. Let's talk about some of the things that caregivers say. The stress continues day after day. Watching the person decline and lose ability is painful. Communication and connection become difficult. Changes in behavior can be awkward and confusing. There are no right solutions that work every time with caregiving. We are needing to make increasingly more difficult decisions as the journey progresses. My role is changing. I'm having feelings of grief and loss. Now let's look at resilience. Resilience is the ability to adjust to change or adversity. In other words, it's the ability to know that caregiving is hard, but be able to face it and manage it better. Caregivers often express that they are constantly needing to adjust to change and adversity. As their person changes, so does the caregiving and the relationship. And then priorities change, abilities change, lifestyle changes. Everything changes. What worked last week for a caregiver doesn't work this week. It's a constant demand for change. Building resilience helps caregivers keep up with the demands along the journey. It doesn't mean that everything will be perfect or fixed, but it does mean that you will manage better. The quality of care that you give to a person living with dementia is affected by how well you are caring for yourself. Are you rested, supported? Are you able to attend to your own health and well-being? These are the things that determine your resiliency. If you don't care for you, over time, you may become worn out, you may feel exhausted, you may notice different emotions such as anger and resentment. Your resiliency will be low. You will probably find it hard to be the compassionate, patient person you want to be. Our goal today is to help you start building resiliency into your life now. Our first step is to take an inventory. Take a moment to pay attention to how you are feeling in this moment, or how you have been feeling in the past few days. Can you relate to any of the words appearing on the screen? Our feelings give us crucial information about ourselves, and they deserve attention. You will likely feel a wide variety of feelings as a caregiver. They are neither good nor bad, but some of these feelings will feel uncomfortable and you wish you really didn't have them. But there they are, so pay attention to them. Now let's take a moment to consider what might be causing these feelings. Remember, caring for a person with dementia takes tremendous time and effort. This is physical, mental, and emotional work. So you might feel discouraged and sad. You might feel lonely and frustrated. These feelings are normal and common, so let them be there. Some of your feelings will likely arise from being unable to change the situation you're in. It's a tough situation. You did not want it. You did not expect it. So your feelings make sense. Other feelings could arise from a sense that there is no end to the ongoing challenge of caregiving. It feels relentless. When we build resilience, we acknowledge that we have a difficult job as a caregiver. It's okay to have a multitude of strong, sometimes conflicting feelings. Now let's look at expectations. What expectations do you have for yourself? What expectations do others have of you? Are these expectations causing some of the more uncomfortable feelings? For example, if you are expecting that others will help with chores without being asked, and they are not, your expectation may be causing resentment and anger, and that makes sense. So we need to continually reconsider our expectations of ourselves and others on this journey. For example, do you need to be able to know everything about dementia? Do you need to do everything for your person and not make mistakes? Do you expect others to jump in and to help? Do you expect them to know how to help and when? How do your expectations impact your emotional well-being? Often caregivers feel uncomfortable with their expectations and expectations of others. And after examination, they realize how hard it is to reach out and ask for support or help. There are many reasons for this. Sometimes caregivers feel that no one really knows their person as well as they do, or they should be able to do it all themselves and not need or ask for help. Then there's a discomfort of feeling like we're imposing on somebody when we help. But doing it all yourself is not going to build resilience. Consider your reasons for not getting help. Are your reasons logical and rational and appropriate to your situation now? Are any of your reasons based on guilt? Most caregivers feel guilty about something at some point in this journey. Some examples are, I feel guilty when I get angry and frustrated. I feel guilty when I start considering alternative care. I feel guilty for not visiting enough and spending enough time. I feel guilty because I believe I'm not doing enough or I'm not doing the right thing. I feel guilty because I wish this was all over and I don't want to be a caregiver anymore. I feel guilty because I'm not paying enough attention to other people in my family or my job or my hobbies. Guilt really interferes with caregiving. It drains you of mental and physical energy, which is the important energy that you need to care for the person living with dementia and also to care for yourself. So we start by acknowledging the feelings of guilt. Acknowledging and addressing these feelings can actually help you control it. And then we try to identify the source. What is causing you to feel guilty? Ask yourself, is it a specific situation that triggers this guilt? Guilt often arises because we've not met our own expectations and we feel we've fallen short of the ideal. Is guilt arising because you think you made a mistake or because you are experiencing difficult thoughts or feelings? Get to the source of that guilt. Share how you feel with others who understand your guilt and won't judge you for it. If you know someone else who has gone through or is going through a similar experience, try sharing how you're feeling with them. You might have a lot in common. Avoid isolating yourself and consider joining a caregiver support group or speaking with a staff member at the Alzheimer's Society of BC. We are here to help. Assess if you are dealing with situations differently in your life than you have in the past. For example, you might find that you're avoiding visiting the person, You might find that your mood has changed. You are being over-assertive with others, overly critical or dismissive of people as they try to help. Perhaps you have been socially isolating. Look out for overuse of substances. Sometimes guilt will manifest itself as a different emotion, such as anger, which is then projected onto others. So ask yourself, is guilt influencing my behavior? Take a break. So being a caregiver for a person living with dementia is a very demanding job, and taking time for yourself will help restore your energy to better face the challenges of caregiving. Taking a break also provides you with the emotional distance needed to put your feelings and the circumstances into perspective. Consider having a family member or friend stay with the person you're caring for, or hiring a companion so you can take a break. And if you're concerned about how your person will respond to having a third party in the house, speak to a staff member at the Alzheimer's Society for tips on how to introduce a new person into the home. Be kind to yourself. Caregivers make mistakes and eventually learn from them and become better, more experienced caregivers. You're on a journey and your mistakes will lead the way to something better. Be realistic about your limits and what you can and are willing to do for the person you are caring for. It's good to have boundaries. Remember that your life also has value. It's not selfish to want to do things that improve your quality of life and improve resilience. You have permission to take care of yourself. It is necessary in order to continue taking care of someone else. Grief and loss. Feelings of guilt as a caregiver often stem from feelings of loss. This may be a loss of identity, a loss of relationship, a loss of control, or a loss of comfort. As you adjust to your caregiver role, you try to anticipate how things will be different, and you will grieve the loss of how things were before. There are 4 principal aspects of loss we will cover today. Disengagement. This is the loss we feel when we leave the familiar behind and shift into something new. For example, moving to a new job or to a new city. Disidentification is what we feel when we transition from what was to what will be. It's a shift in identity. For example, I've lost my identity as a retiree who volunteered in my community, and now I'm a full-time caregiver. That's a completely different identity. Disenchantment is the realization that you have been torn from your old reality, your comfort zone, and thrown into something new. For example, you may have had an image of your retirement, and now you're confronted with a new reality which is significantly different from the one you had anticipated. Disorientation is uncertainty, the feeling of not knowing what comes next or how to prepare for the future. It feels like a loss of control. All these changes include loss. There is a need to acknowledge the loss in order to work towards something new. This is when previous expectations are released and a new reality begins to form. This process doesn't mean that you're letting go of the person. It means you're letting go of the relationship that used to be and your expectations of that person. So you can focus on what is, on the relationship right now, and how it will be in any moment along the dementia journey. From this ambiguous place comes a new beginning, and then you'll find you will commit to new values, new attitudes, and a new identity. This is a major transition. You are transitioning through change and loss, and it takes time, and it doesn't happen overnight. Name it, feel it, express it. Grief is a normal emotional reaction to any of the losses experienced along the journey. As humans, we are hardwired to experience grief. It is our way of coping and processing loss. It is natural, it's normal. But even if we don't name the losses in our life as grief, we often have a grief response. This response may come out as anger, depression, pain, or illness if we repress the grief rather than respond to it. To process our losses in a healthy, healing way, we need to understand the grief process. Name it, feel it, express it. Naming the loss means acknowledging the grief we feel and calling it what it is, grief. Feelings of grief may be mistaken for other things such as anger and frustration. It can also appear as exhaustion. Feeling the loss means allowing yourself to embrace the loss and then feel the grief. Feelings of guilt, anger, denial, and sadness and acceptance are all normal reactions in grief. So much caregiver anguish is caused by resistance or denial of our feelings or circumstances. This denial wastes time and energy and usually makes things harder than they need to be. When we allow ourselves to accept what we're feeling, relief and change become possible. We'd like to add here that if you start to develop signs of depression beyond normal sadness, do seek help. Expressing the loss means finding ways to express the loss you're feeling to help your head's logical understanding of the loss connect with your emotional understanding, because that's where the healing begins. You can do this by talking to others about it, people you trust. You can try journaling, reading about grief, and giving yourself time to feel the grief. Working through the grief process is often more difficult with dementia because of the number of losses and then the length of time over which the losses occur. These could be losses such as loss of communication, conversation, and connection, or loss of a relationship, what you had and what you shared. It could be a loss of your role, a switching of your role, and a loss of responsibility. And then there are the unknowns, trying to anticipate what will come next and when, and not knowing when another loss will arrive. Ways to cope with the unknowns on this journey would include grief education. So learning more about grief and normalizing the feelings of grief. The Alzheimer's Society of BC offers several workshops and dialogues on grief. And know that while things will not be the same as they were before, you will adjust to these losses. Practicing good self-care, including respite and support services, will help you. Knowing your needs and your limits and respecting them. Talking about your grief, expressing your grief, and practicing self-compassion. Understand that your grieving process is uniquely yours, but it's your process and it needs to happen. I want to thank you for joining us for this Building Caregiver Resilience, Guilt and Grief workshop. You will find links to the documents that you might find helpful in the description below the recording. And if you have any questions about information you've heard here or any other questions about living with dementia, please don't hesitate to contact our First Link Dementia Helpline, and the phone numbers are there on the slide. Once again, thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us for this workshop on building caregiver resilience, guilt, and grief. You will find links to the documents you might find helpful in the description below the recording. If you have questions about the information you've heard here or any other questions about living with dementia, please don't hesitate to call our First Link Dementia Helpline. Once again, thank you for joining us.